This episode of the HR Leaders Podcast is brought to you by our friends at LegUp and their new employee benefits program, Talent Insurance. The first proactive employee benefit of its kind, Talent Insurance helps you build adaptable workforces through scalable, personalized professional coaching. In a world of massive workforce disruption, adaptability allows your people to effectively manage change, build resilience, and increase performance. Plus, HR leaders receive unrivaled people analytics for a 360 view of your organization like you've never seen before. Click the link in the description to learn more about Talent Insurance and receive a free copy of their latest report on the drivers, challenges, and impact of coaching in 2021. LegUp, helping you build adaptable workforces through professional coaching. Hi HR Nation, welcome back to the HR Leaders Podcast, the show where we explore the future of work with industry experts and HR executives from the world's leading global brands. Today we have a special guest on the show. We're joined by Clint Pulver, otherwise known as the Undercover Millennial, he's also an Emmy Award-winning keynote speaker, professional drummer, and author of the best-selling book, I Love It Here. Welcome to the show. How are you?
Hey, thanks, Chris. I appreciate it. It's an honor to be here.
It's nice to see you, and I couldn't think of a guest that has a more interesting background. Like, I absolutely love your journey, and even before we went live, I was just like deep diving into your to the work and background. So that being said, tell everyone a little bit more about yourself personally and your journey to where we are now.
Yeah, so I've been a professional keynote speaker for the last 7 years and have toured and recorded all over the world as a drummer and as a speaker, and really talking about the Undercover Millennial Project. It's kind of an interesting take. It's like Undercover Boss without the makeup. And it started 5 years ago, and I'm a part of this mastermind group with some CEOs, executives. We're going around learning from others, CEOs and executives, and we're in New York City, and this gentleman owns a sporting good retail chain, fairly successful. And we're learning from this guy, and he's talking about his business and how they've had to adapt through the changing times. And he's this, thick New Yorker, grew up in New York. He has this accent. And I will never forget when he said, "You got to adapt or you're going to die." very New York. And I was like, okay, that's a very profound statement. And I agreed with him, right? The old style of business versus what we do today in business is different. We got to change to meet the demands of the market. And then I asked him, I said, so what about your people? Have you had to change how you manage people today versus how you manage people 20 years ago? And he fired back and he said, nope, not at all. He said, the way I manage today is the same way I managed 20 years ago, and we get results. It was another fairly bold statement. And I said, okay. And I looked around the store, and in the store were all employees my age or younger. Mm-hmm. So I'm a millennial. They're millennials or Gen Z. And I thought to myself, I just said, I wonder if they would say the same thing that the CEO said. I wonder if they would have this wonderful perception of the store like he portrayed. And so I thanked the guy for his time. We had 35 minutes to kill until we needed to be to the next place. So I went up to an employee and I just said, hey, I've got a little bit of time to kill. I just have a question. And I looked just like this. I had a backwards hat on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. They had no idea.
And I walked up and I just said, what's it like to work here? And the kid looks around. I feel like we're doing an illegal drug exchange. and he's like, do you really want to know? And I'm like, yeah.
That's already a red flag right there.
Yeah. And he said, I cannot stand it here. He's like, literally, dude, I'm a cog in a wheel. Like, this is just a job. And I don't even think my manager knows I'm here today. Wow. We're just miserable, man. Like, it's just, I'm out as soon as I can get out. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, I've already applied to 3 other places. Like, okay, well, maybe the kid's having a bad day. So I went, Chris, and I asked another employee and another and another. And at the end of the conversations, the 35 minutes that I had interviewed 5 out of the 6 of his staff members. And all 5 of his people said they would be gone and not working for this guy in his store in less than 3.5 months. And that was the moment. Yeah. That was the moment I started the Undercover Millennial program, because it was so significant, Chris, because I was not a survey. I was not a manager one-on-one meeting. I was just another millennial. And I created an environment where they could speak their truth. And I remember thinking, man, what if the CEO could hear this? Because unfortunately, most managers have no idea they're doing poorly because there's no incentive.
That guy was oblivious, you mentioned, yeah.
So why would I tell you the truth? I don't want to get blacklisted. I don't want to be the dramatic one.
Or lose their job.
Yeah. And so they're thinking in their mind, like, you're the guy that constantly micromanages me. You're the one that when we win as a team, you take all the credit. When we lose as a team, you blame everybody else. And I'm looking for another job. But when they sit down with the manager and they're like, hey, what can we do to be better? The employee says, no, you're doing great. It's awesome. And then they leave 4 months later. And then everybody in HR and all the managers are like, it's so hard to find good work these days. And there's a disconnect. There's a massive disconnect. And that was 5 years ago. And from that moment on and to where we are today, for that time period, I have worked with 181 organizations, and undercover, I have interviewed over 10,000 employees.
Wow.
As the undercover millennial.
That's crazy.
And we wrote a book, and the book is called I Love It Here: How Great Leaders Create Organizations Their People Never Want to Leave. And it's not another leadership book written by a self-proclaimed leadership expert. That's not what this is. This is a book written by 10,000 employees who knew when their leaders were getting it right. And it's been a beautiful thing to be a part of.
Wow. That's I want to, for anyone listening, I'm going to include some links to your YouTube where you share some in the video clips of you. Do you have like a chest camera? Like a hidden?
I do, yeah. I would have a pen. And so it's a pen. In the pen, there's a little 1080p camera. And I just set it right here. I have no idea. Or I have a little lapel camera. And it's literally like Undercover Boss.
That is crazy.
An undercover agent.
That is crazy.
Again, the goal is to find the truth. Like so many companies, they're like, well, we do surveys. We survey our people. We do one-on-one management meetings. But again, you are missing the reality of what's happening. And companies do surveys, and then they wonder why they still are losing their people.
Yeah.
It's because most people on a survey don't answer honestly, because they're always worried what's on the other side of the survey.
Of course.
And again, we tried to create an environment where truth could be heard.
Even when you say it's like anonymous, people just don't trust it, right? Like a survey. Oh, it's an anonymous survey. There's no name. They're like, yeah. I'm not. I'm
going to give a safe answer just in case.
Yeah, exactly. So talk us through the actual program. What does it look like? How does it work? Do you kind of sit down with leadership beforehand, go over some, what does it look like?
Yeah, so in organizations, listen, Clint, we've tried the surveys. We've just got massive exodus. The revolving door of retention is
so mainly they got a retention problem they're seeing typically.
Yeah, and so they say we need some honest truth. We need some feedback. A lot of them, either they're employing the millennials or Gen Z or even boomers. It doesn't matter what generation, because I'm young enough to go in and still get that real feedback. And so then we plan. I call it just a company tour. Where, so say it's like a food and beverage or like a fast food chain.
Mm-hmm.
We will plan a tour where I will hit in specific regions. And then I have a team now, because we've done it so much. I have a team of 2 other millennials. So sometimes we're flying out to different locations and we're picking a region and we're doing a massive tour. And I go in, and the goal is to always get, again, depending on the size of the company, is to hit anywhere from 5 to 6 employees in each location. And I walk in and I just go, hey guys, I'm just looking for work. I had a friend that kind of referred me to here, and I'm just trying to talk to a few people before I apply.
Oh, right. So you're not even posing in as like an employee that they've just hired or anything like that. It's just you literally you can go to anywhere and just ask that same set.
Because I'm looking for a job.
The whole premise is you're looking for a job. Okay.
Yeah. And then they're like, oh man, run away from here.
Are people, how open are people typically? Are most people willing to share with you, or is there people like, I'm not really comfortable, or the vast majority of people quite open?
Yeah, I would find, honestly, about 87 to almost 90% of people are completely open.
Really?
Because they have no clue, right? And
yeah, that's true.
And you're going to come into the organization and you're going to actually apply. And if it's a really toxic environment, a lot of people are like, run away from here. And I will tell you why, because I want to help you. But the real magic of all of the research is when I would go up to somebody and say, what's it like to work here? And then they would respond with, oh my gosh, I love it here.
Yes.
I love this job.
And that's what your book, and that's the book. And that's really, yeah.
That's why we titled the book, I Love It Here.
Mm-hmm.
And then the reason, right? The magic behind how great leaders were creating organizations that created those types of responses.
Mm-hmm.
And that would trend in an organization. I could go to a fast food or a tech company or a medical clinic, and it would just trend every single employee. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, we love it here. We love it here.
Would you say the vast majority of what you were learning that the leaders were very aware of the great things they were doing, or is unintentional in some cases?
Yes and no, but I would say more so intentional. Those leaders designed that kind of culture.
Okay.
They designed.
It wasn't by accident.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was always designed. And that's why, again, we were able to write about the book. What were the common trends? What were the universal principles that were taking place in those organizations?
Mm-hmm. I know something you're very proud of, which also stood out to me when you reached out as well, is the fact that the book's focused around actionable strategies, proven methods. Because there's nothing worse than reading a book where it's very, high level, and it just, there's a lot of research there, but nothing real practical that you can do.
Exactly. And I wanted it to be prescriptive.
Yes.
I wanted to read, okay, here's a problem, here's an issue, but I wanted it to be solution based. You're not going to read about a bunch of problems or theories. You're going to walk away with a strategy, tangible, an actionable narrative.
Yeah.
That gets.
Well, let's start with the negative and kind of move to sort of the solution. What were the main concerns that you were hearing from employees which were making them become disengaged and just generally not enjoying their job?
Yeah, I think we talk about a lot of this, but it is true. Management. You are the number one reason why people stay, and management is the number one reason why people leave. There's 4 types of managers in every company that we found in our research. I could go into almost any business that would have a decent amount of employees and staff. There's 4 types of managers. And it's interesting because I could nail down if an employee was satisfied or dissatisfied with their manager based off of 2 variables. Number 1 was the standards of the manager or the lack thereof. Number 2 was their ability to connect. Their ability to just relate, to be empathetic, to understand that they're humans and they have a life outside of work. Those 2 variables. So we kind of rank these 4 managers based off of those variables. So the first manager is what I call the removed manager. This is the manager that's just burnt out. They're tired. They literally should have stopped managing 20 years ago. They're low on standards. They're low on connection. They don't really know if their employees showed up on time. They sit in the back. You don't even know if they're there half the time. And so what does this create in the workforce? Disengagement. This is where the workforce, they're removed. And it's like, why would I show up on time? The manager doesn't even show up on time. Like, the manager doesn't care if I do my work. Why should I work hard? Because they're removed. The second manager is what we call the buddy manager. This is the manager that wants to be everybody's homie. They want to be liked more than they're respected. So they're really high on connection, but they're low on standards. What did this create in the workplace? Entitlement. And this is where we get that stigma of like, oh, everybody's entitled. All these employees are entitled. They don't want to earn it. They don't want to work. And it's like, well, they've created this relationship with their boss where, you go and play Xbox on the weekends with them and they consider you a homie. And that's where the employees become more of the boss than the boss is. And it's an interesting dynamic. The buddy manager was fairly prominent, but the most prominent, unfortunately, is the third manager. And that's the controller. This is like that old command and control, like put your head down, go to work. I'm not here to be your
micromanager.
Yeah, totally. It's like, I show you that I love you because I give you a paycheck. Okay. So they're really high. They're really high on standards, but they are low on connection. And then what did this create in the workforce? Every time, rebellion, pushback. This is the manager that's constantly every day going toe to toe with every employee. It's fear-based tactics. It's command and control style leadership. And it just never worked. It would get results, but it never lasted.
That's, by the way, great point, because I worked in a company where that was the culture and all the managers were trained to be that exact style. And yes, we the company on paper, super successful.
Yep.
Higher sales, like it was, it was crazy. The amount of product we were shifting and but then everyone was miserable.
Yeah.
So my friends would be like, Chris, you should be so happy, you're earning tons of money. And I was absolutely miserable. And it's because I had a manager and leaders like that you're describing.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
And I think that then leads into the fourth manager and why it was so significant. And I call them the mentor manager. They were equally high on standards, right? As a job or in a business, you have a profit to make. You have a product to sell. You need to grow. The point is to obviously scale a business, right? Let's get from point A to point B to point C. Let's be a thriving organization. So they're high on standards, but they also understood people. And so they were equally high on their ability to connect. What did this create in the workforce? Respect. They might not always have been liked as a manager, but they were respected. And it was a beautiful thing to watch. And there's a reason, Chris, why I call it the mentor manager. Mentorship versus leadership, mentorship versus management. Mentorship was a really cool thing to see in our research because it wasn't totally leadership and it wasn't management. And I think those are the two categories that we talked a lot about.
Yes, one or the other.
Yeah, and mentorship was the facet when I saw increased loyalty, engagement, buy-in from an employee to boss relationship. When an employee hated their job, they talked about the manager. But when an employee loved their job, they talked about the mentor. Not the leader, the mentor. Leadership is the person, you're in traditional leadership, you stand at the front and you lead. You have the vision. Where's the ship going? The manager is the person that's making sure there's no leaks on the ship, making sure the ship can move through the ocean. But the mentor is the person who's taking care of the people on the ship. Mm-hmm. Mentorship is not a title. Mentorship had to be earned. That was what was so cool about it. You might have the title as a leader or a director or a CEO, but you do not become a mentor until that mentee invites you into their heart. Mm-hmm. It had to be earned. And, oh man, when it happened, it was a beautiful thing to watch. And it's a part of like any great story too. That's what was so funny in our research. Like if you look at like Star Wars, I like Star Wars. You have Luke Skywalker, and then who appears in the story eventually? Obi-Wan Kenobi, right?
Yeah.
Or Yoda. Rocky, I'm a big Rocky fan. I like Rocky. Rocky mm-hmm. had Mick.
Yeah.
Katniss Everdeen, she had Haymitch. Aladdin had the genie. Simba had Mufasa, right? Great mentors. They were these individuals that because of who they were, they connected employees to their dreams. They became advocates, not just developers. It was a very powerful thing to watch. Mm-hmm. Mentorship.
I love that as well, because whenever I speak to, one of the questions I ask different CHROs and leaders that come on the show is who within your careers had the most impact? Like name one someone that's had, and they always describe them as a mentor. Even if they are a manager or a leader, they use the word, I noticed that's the common, when they go to describe it, there was their manager, but they don't use the word manager or the word their leader. They say my mentor, and who happened to also be their manager. But they use the word mentor. You're right. It's
yeah. And we found it was really cool because I tried to kind of track this. So in my research, I'm hearing about these significant people, but why? Like what made them so significant? What made them stand out? What gave them the right to earn that title as a mentor? And I found, I narrowed it down to 5 things. There's 5 characteristics that allow you to be a mentor. And I call them the 5 C's of mentorship. Number 1 is confidence. Like you need to, as a mentor, have a mindset that builds trust. Like, do you actually know what you're talking about? Do you have confidence in yourself and in the fact that I can get you to where you want to go? Number 2 was credibility. Like, I want to know, what's your resume? What's your history? What's your background? Okay, you're the sales manager, but have you ever sold anything? What's your credibility? And then the 3rd C is competence. Like you might know everything about the game of basketball, but can you get out and actually shoot a hoop? Right? You talked about hockey, Chris. Like, okay, you might know the game, you might know the theory, you might know who started the team and in 1974, who won the NHL. Like, you might know all that, but can you actually get out and play? I learn from a practitioner, not just a theorist. That was critical. And then number 4 was candor. Great mentors had the ability to build relationships so strong that honesty could exist. I want to mentor with someone who's going to give it to me straight. Like, don't give me fluff. Don't tell me, oh, you're wonderful, here's a gold medal. Like, give me honest feedback. I want an honest relationship so I can get better. And then that leads into the 5th C, which is caring. They had the ability to truly care. I don't think that true mentorship in its finest is, sitting back and listening to a guru or listening to reading a book, or, there's an element of mentorship there.
Yeah.
But there is also an element in mentorship about relationships, true, lasting, connected relationships, where you care about that person and they care about you. And those 5 C's, man, confidence, credibility, competence, candor, and the ability to care. And if you think of any great mentor in your life, I guarantee you they had those 5 characteristics. Mm-hmm. And that's what we found, that leaders were training other leaders in those things. They were showcasing those leaders to the employees. I saw one company, it was really cool, during orientation and onboarding. The CEO would come in and he would meet with every team, and he would bring the manager in and he would say, listen, I want all of you to know who you have the opportunity to learn from. I want you to know who your manager is. And then he literally would go through all 5 C's and tell every employee why he's confident, why that person has the credibility. They also have the competence. He's going to have honest conversations with you to help you be successful in this organization. And I promise you, he has your back. He cares about you. And what did that do? Man, instantly, with those new employees and that manager, it put him in the role of mentor, not boss. And it was a gorgeous, beautiful process.
I love that.
And we need to do more of that. We need to give people a reason to connect with us in leadership. Mm-hmm. Earn it.
Yeah, I love that. I absolutely love that, especially coming from the CEO as well. It just adds even more impact with that kind of, because you are right, because like even as a sales manager, you made a sales manager analogy earlier, and it made me laugh because I remember when I had new people coming to the team and some of them didn't know that I had been doing their job for years. So they're like, oh, you're just a manager. You don't, I'm like, no, I lived and breathed on that phone. And I sold that product just because I'm not doing it now. I did that, and it's like, if you up front, and I do care and stuff like that. And if you did that up front and set that tone, I can only imagine the impact that's going to have straight away. And it's going to build that relationship and connection quicker.
Yeah, and it lasts. And those are like, honestly, like the people that we don't forget.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's interesting because sometimes I think in a company, we fall so heavy on the success side. Like we want to be a successful organization. But really the great leaders that created organizations that people never wanted to leave, they fell on the significant side, the significant level. And it's all about individuals. It's all about care of people. Like if I were to say, Chris, can you tell me who the last 3 NFL MVPs were?
I have no idea.
No clue, right? Or who are the last 2 Academy Award winners for Best Actor?
No idea.
No idea, right? Who are the last 2 Miss Americas? Like we have no clue. No, nobody knows. And I ask that question all the time. Nobody knows. But watch this. If I were to ask you, Chris, could you tell me the name of one teacher or maybe one coach who made a difference in your life?
That's crazy because I was Miss Treadwell in primary school.
Exactly. Like
and Mr. Howarth was my coach in primary school and I remember, yeah,
right.
Miss Treadwell, I remember she took me a long time to learn how to read, so she took time out of her day after school to teach me how to read away from the other kids because I was struggling. And then Mr. Howarth helped me develop in basketball and table tennis so I could compete at a high level again in his own time. So they just like embedded in my head of those two people.
Yeah, and that is the point. It's the difference between success versus significance. No employee undercover ever came up and told me, I work here because my boss, like they run the best meetings I've ever seen. Our company growth is like 20% higher than it was last year. And that is why I stay. Never happened. Nobody.
It's so true.
In the 10,000 employees I've interviewed, nobody gave a rip about that. They talked about the bosses that were mentors. They talked about the people that got to the part about them. Every employee is asking you as a boss, let me know when it gets to the part about me. And some people think, well, those entitled little shining stars in my life, right? Like, let me know when it gets to the part about me. And I would say it's not so much about entitlement as it is about good business. It's the difference between being significant versus just successful in HR, in management, in business growth. It's about people and the connections that we create. And that's what people remember. That's what people talk about.
Yeah. It's interesting because all of my employees are people I've worked with in different companies.
Yeah.
and I've managed them in other companies, or my team have managed them in other companies. And it's like, it's not like we just only went for that talent, but naturally when we was a small business and we need to scale quickly, you look to your network, right? That's kind of your first go-to. And it was, I have employees that I worked with 3 companies ago, but we kind of had that. We left out even people I have had to let go.
Yes.
But we let go, and it was respect. It was they respected me, the decision, and now we work together now as well. And those are the relationships and the moments that matter, and people remember that.
Yeah,
they really do.
What a concept, right? And I think when managers understood that stewardship, it changed a lot. I think I saw this a ton in our undercover stuff, where you would find managers who should never have been managers because they were put in the management
because you're good at sales, right? That's the same in my last company. You're great at sales. Let's put you as a manager.
Let's just promote you. And it's like they have no desire to connect with people. They have no desire to be a steward.
Yeah.
Like they just.
I really struggled with that, by the way. I was one of those people that I was all about me, Chris's sales, because that was my whole career up until that point. It was always about my individual results. And then all of a sudden being made a manager, and it no longer being about Chris and it being about other people's, you're measured now on other people's success. I really struggled with that. I had no playbook. I was just told to get on with it. And I was like, I was lost for a long time. I was just kind of floating out there. The only way I managed was I hated being managed the way my manager managed me, which was the kind of manager you described earlier, which was the person who, you're not my friend. We don't talk to each other. You're the manager. I'm the manager. You're the employee, micromanager. So I just said, let me just manage the team. Not like that. That was my only, I'm going to have conversations with them about how they're feeling and what's going on at home, because that could be an issue of why they're not performing. I'm going to, do all those things you kind of mentioned, but I wish I'll be lying if I said I had a process. I was just winging it for the longest time.
Yeah, so many managers are like they get thrown into the lion's cage and they have no training. They have no background. And they're just expected to win. You're just expected to succeed. Yeah.
Can you turn it around? So like those employees that you spoke to, the ones that were like, this is just a stepping stone. I'm applying. I can't wait to get out of here. After you come in, you go back to the team. Is it too late for some of those employees, or what's the steps you take? You go back to the office, the HQ. You say, look, these are the results that me and the team found from interviewing your employees undercover. What next?
Yeah. So one thing that we found again is there's 2 basic fundamentals here. An employee needs to survive in your business, and they also need to be able to thrive. Now, if they're thriving too much, right? They've got a lot of passion and purpose in the job, but they can't pay their bills, and they're working in like 4 other jobs, and they're trying to find something during the summertime, there's going to be some conflict there. Or likewise, maybe they're making tons of money. Like they've got a great salary, their house payment, they can cover all their bills, whatever. But then they're not thriving, then you've got an issue of burnout and fatigue and stress.
That was me for a long, long time.
Yeah, so survive and thrive. And so one thing that we found that's really critical in most organizations, and most of them are starving people of these 2 things. And it is, number 1, potential, the opportunity to grow. Because if your people cannot grow where they are at, they will go and grow somewhere else. Potential. Do I have a future here? In this company, are you communicating what I can become? That's number 1. Second is worth, recognition. Am I worth something here? Do you see me? Do you validate what I am and what I'm doing? Potential and worth. So if we go back to the potential piece, every employee we found should have a growth development plan, like something to grow into. Like, what's the vision? Again, mentors connect employees to their dreams. So what is it the employee wants? Is it a promotion? Is it increased in pay? Is it a new job? Is it a new team? Do they want to do a lateral move? Like, what is it? What matters to them? And so many companies, this drives me crazy, but they come in guns a-blazing and they think they know what the employee wants. Hey, we got the Christmas party coming up. We're going to give everybody this. And they have never taken 2 seconds to ask their people. You hear that age-old adage, probably, Chris, of if you feed a man a fish, then you feed him for a day. But if you can teach a man to fish, then you feed him for a lifetime. Every time I hear that, I think, who said the guy wanted a fish? Like, who said that? I'm not a fish guy.
Me too.
I'm always like, who said the guy wanted a fish?
That's a good point. I didn't expect you to say that. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And it's that adage of, again, do we ask people? Like, yes, I get it. You have a benefits program. Yes, you want to help your people. Yes, you want to create a good culture. But have you taken the time to ask them? We found that great leaders conducted what was called status interviews. It's not a stay interview. It's not an exit interview. It's not a performance review. It's a status interview. I came from the medical field. Some of my background's in the operating room. And the doctor would always refer to the status. What's the status of the patient? Can I get a status update? What they're referring to is the heart rate, the body temperature, the blood pressure, and the respiratory rate. Those are your 4 vital signs. If you do not have one of those 4 things, you're dead. And so the status is the update on the vitals. Now, the vitals of an individual will tell you how to treat them. All right, we got low blood pressure. I need to change this. Or in a business mindset, we got low retention. We need to do this. We've got people that are coming in. They're only staying for 4 months. We need to change this. Like, what are the vitals telling you so that you can treat better? And then after you treat, you recheck the vitals. And we treat again, and we recheck the vitals. And we keep doing this until healthy stability is maintained. The point is, you need to conduct a status interview with your people. Here's why I say this. I have done research during COVID-19, and I'm here to tell everybody that is listening to this show that we are going to see a massive job churn in 2021. Q3, Q4, you will start to see an exodus.
I'm already seeing it amongst my friends and family.
Yeah,
loads of my friends and family are leaving their jobs. They're like, actually did kind of come to a realization over the last year, like, why am I doing this?
Absolutely, because they've had time to think.
Think about it, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, everybody has time to think, and a lot of jobs have changed drastically. Mm-hmm. Like what they were pre-pandemic to what they are post-pandemic, it's totally different. And they're realizing, oh my gosh, I can go and apply for this other job that allows me to live in another city, and I don't ever have to go in, and I can make 3 times the money. Like, the market is getting more competitive now with the virtual space, and retention rates are like all-time high right now because everybody hunkered down.
Everyone's scared about losing their job, and
they're all scared. Mm-hmm. Yeah, everybody was uncertain, but now, oh man, if you do not know the pulse, the vitals of your people right now, kiss them goodbye, because I think we're going to see a big exodus. Now, here's the reason how I would recommend stopping that. If you're listening to this, I would advise you to find your top players. Like, who are your elite employees that you cannot lose? And they deserve a status interview. The status interview starts with vocal praise. This is not like a formal, awkward, like, hey, come to my office, let's sit down and talk about your future. That's not what this is. This is like you creating a moment that allows you to look at the vitals so that you can treat them better. You start with vocal praise. You would sit down, hey, Johnny, let's go on a walk, or hey, and it can be a formal sit down. You could see them in the hallway and just, I just want you to know.
Or you could just do like a Zoom and talk, like walk and talk via Zoom.
Sure.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Yep. And it could be, hey, John, I just want you to know, like, we appreciate you. Everything you've done, like 2019 was chaos. 2020 was hard. 2021's even harder. And you've stuck with us. You've done a great job. You're starting with the vocal praise. And then each status interview should consist of 3 questions. Number 1 is, what can I do as your boss or your manager to keep you here? What can I do to keep you in this organization and to keep you happy, to keep you engaged? I just want to know. I value you. what can I do to keep you here? Number two, the second question is, what's getting in the way of your success in this organization? Is it the other manager? Is it the pay? What are the obstacles? Is it time off? Is it flexibility? Is it the schedule? Like, I just want to know what's getting in the way of you being successful. And then the last question, number three, is what can I do to help you get there? That's it. Great leaders that in some variation would ask those types of questions to their people, their A team, their A-list people, the people they can't lose. If they lost in an organization, it would cost them thousands and thousands of dollars, loss in morale, productivity. Who are those people? Every one of them deserves a status interview. They need to have potential in the organization. And sometimes people worry about asking that because they're like, oh my gosh, what if they ask for 20% increase in pay and ski passes?
But what if you don't ask it, then leave anyway?
Yeah, exactly. You're exactly right. What if you don't ask and then they do leave?
Exactly. What's the cost of not asking?
Yeah. And if you can't give them what they want, look for a variable. Look for something else. Look for another alternative.
That's a good point. You don't have to have all of the answers. Yes. And you can also be vulnerable and say, like, I can't do that, but we can do this, or we can find, so you can have that conversation.
Right. And at least you asked.
Yes.
Most bosses never ask. Ask your people, check the status so you can treat them better.
Mm-hmm. What are some of the other top strategies that you saw, patterns that leaders do? Practical, something even small that people listening can do. That's a great, the one you just shared is amazing, by the way, and love that one.
Yeah, so the other thing is on the other side of that was worth, remember? So recognition, great recognition. So many companies, they give people like, here's a water bottle and a t-shirt.
You've seen it on LinkedIn now, right? Because everyone's a remote work now, so they're sending here's your t-shirt, here's your stickers, here's your. Do you not think there's any benefit to that?
No.
Why do the employees then all post on LinkedIn with the photos of their new water bottle branded? Then why do they do that?
Yeah, here's the thing. I think that there needs to be a sense of quality. If we're going to give something to somebody in a way that we're recognizing them, like, up it up in a little bit of quality. Like, get something nice. Like I remember in corporate America, they give me the t-shirt. Dude, I threw it in the trash. I was never going to wear that out in public. There's like all-star members, team number one. Like, but companies spend a lot
of money, right? Yeah,
thousands of dollars on this stuff. So we found that the better you can personalize the recognition, the more significant it would become.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, employees talked about 5 ways that they love to be recognized. When I would ask an employee, like, what do they do to like value you in this organization? The number one thing that they asked for the most was vocal praise. It was also the number one thing that people talked about the most. My manager's always just sitting down and just congratulating me. They're constantly like teaching me they just give praise. Like we get a lot of thank yous, and it costs $0 for a company to do that. $0. Vocal praise was number one. Number two was experiences. And that's a little bit harder right now because of COVID, but I'm talking like concert, movie tickets, going off site and everybody goes axe throwing. They talked about stuff like that. Like we go on experiences, or, my boss knows that I love a good hockey game. So he hooked me up with 2 tickets for me and my partner to go and hang out at the hockey game because I did well this last week, or I performed well. Give them an experience. But again, something that's tailored to them. You don't want to give Hamilton tickets to somebody who, they're like, just give me a bump in pay. Like, I don't want to go to a show. Again, it has to be personalized. The third one was time off and flexibility. Listen, you've been performing, you've been doing so well. Steve, I know you love to go fishing. As a thank you, what if we just cut your day at 4:00 every day so you can go fishing? I know that matters to you. And I want to say thank you. Time off, flexibility. I know, like, listen, you've got the daycare situation with your wife. What if you take Fridays off? You've been doing everything you need to do. You're hitting your numbers. You're performing. Take Fridays off. Like that flexibility, that time off mattered to people. The next thing was actually money. Money matters. I don't care who you are. Money was talked about. They said, a lot of people, I work here for the money, right? Or I'm here because I'm getting paid a lot. But again, that never lasted. That's why if we can bring it up with some other things like purpose and passion and potential, that mattered. But money is important. People need to survive. Give them a little boost in pay if they're doing well. Amazon gift card. Money matters. Then the next thing is food. Taco Tuesdays. Bringing pizza into the office on Fridays. Employees love that. If there was a favorite joint or a restaurant or something that everybody loved, great. We won as a team. You performed, or you did this, or we hit this goal. We're bringing in lunch for everybody. And then the last thing was really interesting, and it was toys and awards, is what I call it. Think like a Letterman's jacket.
Yeah.
Or like the ring. Or we talk about old time, like the gold watch.
The watch, yeah. The watch is the traditional one, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Like the Rookie of the Year. That beautiful trophy that means something. It was a beautiful way to personalize some recognition to people.
One of our clients, who's a friend of ours who speaks a lot of our summits, he has hockey jerseys, their own company branded hockey jerseys, and then you have your number and your name on the back of your jersey. Yeah. And he sent me one in the post with, and I was like, that meant so much. Like, because obviously I love hockey, but it's like, it's not generic. It's not like just a t-shirt. It's a hockey jersey with your name on the back with your number. And it's yeah.
Did that end up in the trash can?
No, I wear it all the time.
Oh, right? Yeah. So it's that difference. It was tailored to you. It was quality. And
it was very high quality. Yeah. Yep. Worth
and recognition.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing too that's I think really quick to mention, if we can, Chris, is time. Surprisingly commented a lot about, like, with the employees that we spoke to. So many leaders are trying to boil the ocean. They're so busy. And employees spell mentorship TIME. Granted, they can't spell that well, but that's how they spell it. Time. Like, a lot of employees talked about, my manager just gives me time. I can go up, I can knock on the door, and she'll be doing a million things, and she'll stop everything. And she'll just sit down and she'll just listen. And she'll hear me out, and we can talk. And time. I found that most good leaders knew what they needed to do. But the greatest leaders knew what they needed to stop doing. How do you expect to connect with people when you're, again, trying to boil the ocean? It was Da Vinci that said that simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. And I think a lot of leaders are good at creating the to-do list. I would advocate for the power of the to-don't list.
Yeah.
What are the things that you can stop doing that would give you more time?
Mm-hmm.
Like what do you do in the morning when you wake up? You reach over, you grab your phone, and you start looking at all the notifications that you missed over the night. And then you go to your email and you start checking out, okay, what do I got to do today? Instead of leaning over to the person next to you and kissing them and telling them how much you love them, right? Like, it's just that concept of, like, where are we putting our time? Where are we drawing boundaries?
It's interesting. I did that with my co-founder recently, and we did it as like a pie chart. So we basically wrote down our pie charts and broke it up into sections of how much we spend our time. And we found that, like, days now, like, it's like hours and hours here and there, they added up to 2, 3, 4 days within a month we now have free. Because we're like, you just need to stop doing these. And it was good to visually to write it down and, like, as a pie chart and see where we're allocating our time. We're like, and then of that time, what's the ROI? So, okay, we're spending 30% here. What is that 30% actually doing to help us get towards these goals? And it's like, wait a minute. Why am I spending 30% here when that 10% is actually contributing more to where we need to go? And then it was like more of a case, like you said, of what to stop doing, as opposed to, it's a great thing. People always focus on what to add new things, whereas actually you're right, just stop down actually what to stop doing.
Keep it simple.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you do that, you save yourself more time, you save yourself more money, you can connect. I always tell people this: marriage is grand. It really is. Marriage is grand. But divorce is about 100 grand.
I love it.
It's true, right? Like, listen, having employees is a wonderful thing, but when your employees leave, it costs you thousands of dollars. Thousands. Every time somebody leaves, and what you have to do to retrain, rehire, find somebody, the loss in morale, productivity. Like, keep it simple. Keep it simple. Stop doing some things so you can connect more.
What's the biggest takeaway that you learned personally from the research?
I think the role that good mentors play in the lives of others. Like, I don't think we understand the power that you have to change a person's life. Me as a young kid, Chris, I struggled. I struggled to hold still. Like, I would constantly move. My right hand would tap, my left hand would move. I was deemed a problem by everybody because that's annoying, right? I was called the twitcher. I was called the tapper. One day I had a teacher, and his name was Mr. Jensen. And he looked at me as I was tapping in class, and he said, "Hey, kid in the back." He said, "You." He said, I need to see you after class. We're going to have a conversation. All the other kids are like, "Oh, Twitcher's going to die." The bell rings. It's a completely empty room, minus Mr. Jensen and me. And he goes, come here, sit down. And I'm thinking I'm in so much trouble because everybody saw the problem. And he sat down and he said, "Listen," he said, "Clint, I've watched you and you're the problem kid. You're on the list. You tap in my class and you tap in everybody else's class." He said, "But it's crazy." He's like, "I watch, and you'll write, you'll take a pen and you'll write with your right hand, and then you start tapping with your left hand. And then you can switch the pen and you'll start writing with your left and you can tap with your right." He's like, I think you're ambidextrous. And I was like, "No, I'm Presbyterian." He said, "No." He said, "That's not what this means." He's like, "That's not what it means." He said, "No." He said, "Try this." He
Did
said,
you really say that though?
"And rub your belly." He's like, "Can you tap your head and rub your belly?"
Yeah,
and I'm
yeah.
like, "Yeah, I can do that." And he's like, "Can you switch it? Can you rub your head and then tap your belly?"
Yeah.
And literally back and forth without thinking about it, I could do it. And he leaned forward and he looked at me and he said, "I don't think you're a problem. I just think you're a drummer."
Yeah, have you got that on a t-shirt? Have you got that on a t-shirt? Please tell me you got that on a t-shirt.
It's right here. It just says drummer. No, most people hear that and they go, "What's the difference between a problem and a drummer?" Sounds the same to me. Get out.
Depends if you live with them.
Yeah, right. But here's the thing. This is what I learned, is that great leaders had the ability to design moments. Employees do not remember days. They remember moments. Because in this moment, Mr. Jensen, the old teacher, he leaned back in his desk and he opened up the top drawer and he reached inside and he took out my very first pair of drumsticks. My very first pair. And he put them in my hands and he said, "Listen, kid, I don't see a problem. I see an opportunity. And I want you to keep them in your hands and let's just see what happens." That was 22 years ago, Chris. And I can sit here today and honestly tell you that 22 years ago, literally to this exact moment, I've tried my best to keep my promise to Mr. Jensen. And for 22 years, I've had the opportunities to tour and record all over the world as a professional drummer. I've been on America's Got Talent. I played with Carrie Underwood, Tim McGraw, the Blue Man Group. I started the first college drumline in my high school or at my university, and I graduated in 2012 with zero college debt. And that was all from music scholarships. And I don't say all those things to go, "Wow, good for you, Clint," or "What a list of accolades." No, that's not the reason. The reason I'm telling you that is because one mentor, one educator decided to advocate for a kid as much as he developed him. One teacher created a moment that sparked possibility, worth, potential, something I could grow into. He took the time to connect. And in doing so, it made my life a completely different and better story. That was the most significant thing I learned, and that I was able to watch and to hear those stories.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful reminder that you get to do that every single day in the position that you call boss. Yeah.
It's super impactful. And by the way, in school, my nickname was Adrenaline. And I had a really tough time in school. So I was like bullied really badly, to the point where it was taking a real big hit on my mental health, like really bad. Like I didn't want to leave my room, didn't want to go to school. And a similar thing happened. I was very skinny, like super slim, because I was so hyperactive, constantly moving around, hence the adrenaline name. And again, Mr. Howarth, it's like we can channel that energy into sports and also build confidence, because I had zero confidence. But I had all of this energy and this ability. My hand-eye coordination was amazing, which I didn't know obviously at the time. And again, that led on to being one of the best athletes in school, but also I stopped being bullied because I became an athlete in school, and all the bullies were now on the team, and they left me alone, and it got a confidence came with that, and that transformed my whole life. Like literally went from some days just like didn't want to be alive because I would go to school and just get robbed and bullied and beat up and just everything under the sun, to being part of these teams, playing hockey, running, tennis, and all of a sudden I had this outlet to just use all of that energy that I had. And then that transferred into the workplace. So when I came into the workplace, it was like, okay, I understand that I'm going to be terrible at this. Who's my coach? My coach is my manager. Become coachable, fall on your face. That's cool. I fell on my face every day when I played ice hockey. And then so he changed my life. And Shane also, whenever we talk about Mr. Howarth, he's had so many of our friends, he mentioned him, like so many from different year groups. So and they always will talk about Mr. Howarth. Like, he was hard. He was a hard, you didn't want to mess with him. But he was fair. But he was fair, and he even the most troubled kids, he would give them the time to help you, as well. So like those you are right. Like all these years later, I can remember it like it was yesterday, going into training into that going into the Lions Den, which was basically the tryouts of the basketball team, which is where all the bullies congregated. So I was like going into the Lions Den of like, oh my God. I was like, I got to do it. I could do it. And even in the change room, they threw my bag in the shower and it got soaking wet. But I went into the thing, and I trained all summer, every day. And I remember just making the team, and everyone was like, Chris can play basketball now? I was like, and then that was it. My life changed at like 14 years old from then onwards. So you are right. The people like that they really change lives. I even had an employee as well. Like I'll show one more example. I don't want to go too into it, but I had an employee who basically had gone through 5, 6, 7 sales teams and just not been successful. And each team, this guy's he's got the most call times in the company. He's doing the most sales pitches. He's working more hours than anyone, but he's just not getting the results. And no one could figure it out. And he went through team to team to team, and my manager came to me and said, look, we've got this guy, we're probably thinking about letting him go, but do you want to just try him on your team for a few days and just see? So I was like, okay. He said he came on the team, same thing, all these calls, dials, everything. And I was like, what's going on? Like, it doesn't make no sense. He should be doing so many sales. And what we found out is that no one took the time just to sit him down and say, how are you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Not,
here's your KPIs, here's your numbers, all these things. And I was just sat down and said, like, what's going on? Like, you're doing all this work, but you don't seem like you're enjoying it. You seem very down and stuff like that. And what happened was his girlfriend had left him and gone back to the country they traveled in from, and he was just really in a bad place. So whenever it came to asking for the deal, so he was doing all of the hard work, but when it came to asking for the deal, he didn't have the confidence to take that last step. And it was through that conversation that we had that we kind of built that confidence. We kind of built the script around him and slowly elevated, and he became the most successful salesperson ever in the company. And he went on to start his own company. He invested in my company. Remember, I was his boss. He went on to outgrow the business, leave, build his own company, sold it for millions, invested in HR leaders, and that he was someone that we were literally 2 days away from just giving up on and just saying goodbye. You didn't perform because no one bothered to say maybe it's not an issue with the script or with the work or where else. Maybe someone just say, "How are you?
Yeah.
How are you feeling today?" Like,
and it's that focus, right, of just people. No significant loyalty will ever happen without significant connection. And we deem those things as sometimes the soft skills, right? Or the intangible.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
But to the people, that's what matters. That's sometimes the only thing they need.
You just needed someone to believe in him.
And it can change everything. So that was it, Chris. That was the most beautiful thing to watch and to see, is when leaders got to the part about the people.
Mm-hmm.
And in doing so, they help them live a better life.
Well, look, man, I've really enjoyed this conversation, and I'm super excited for people to grab a copy of this book because I know it's going to actually change lives genuinely as well. So for everyone listening, where can they grab a copy of the book, or if they want to connect with you and learn more, where's the best place for them to reach out to you?
So they can find the book. The book's on Amazon right now. It's available for pre-order. Again, the title is I Love It Here, How Great Leaders Create Organizations Their People Never Want to Leave. And then you can find me at clintpulver.com on my website.
Are you going to be going back into companies when things open up?
Absolutely.
Oh, man.
We're already starting to do that more and more. Hybrid events are huge right now. We built a huge virtual studio. We've been doing that for the last year and a half, but now we're slowly starting to get back to where we're doing big live keynotes and working with organizations, which has been wonderful. Well,
look, thank you so much for Clint. You are truly changing lives with the work that you're doing as well. And if there's like one parting piece of advice, what would that be? And then we'll say goodbye.
I think it would be here. This would be my last statement. The cool thing about leadership is that it matters. The hardest part about leadership is that it matters every day. Consistency in these things will always trump short-term moments. It is the small little moments, day after day after day, the consistency that truly brought about lasting change. And I know this. There are leaders listening right now that feel like they're on an episode of Survivor. Like, it's been a hard year. It's been a hard past almost year and a half. But I promise your efforts, those things that you make consistently day after day, they might just seem like they're a drop in the bucket, but at least it's a drop in the bucket. And little by little, you will make a lot. That's what builds a great culture. It is small, consistent moments that you design in the lives of your people that over time creates an organization where people don't just survive, they actually thrive. Don't just be the best company in the world. Be the best company for the world. Be the best company for your people. Be the best company for each other. Be significant, not just successful.
Dude, amazing. Gave me chills, man. Gave me chills. Listen, I'll let you run. For everyone listening, click the link in the description right now. You can grab a copy of the book. Obviously, go check out more of Clint's work. And I wish you all the best until we hopefully get to meet in person someday.
It's been an absolute pleasure, Chris. I appreciate you and all you're doing. And thanks for having me on the show.
See ya. Bye. Bye for now.